Hey everybody, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host Mike, and with me as always is Evan.
Yep, playing Beastmen today, and we're gonna go walk through some of my games. So, just talk about how I got into the third place.
Exciting. So we did just go over this in our last video. We got the results of our Palm Spring Open event. This was our second two-day event of this year. We partnered up with Dice Hammer to go out to Palm Springs. Fantastic event. Huge success. We had 20 plus players or so on the old world side. Of course, there was 40K, AOS, other things in the room over there. Lots of excitement, great positive energy. And Evan, one of his best performances yet at one of our events, came in third place. Congratulations, sir. That was not easy. There's
Mm-hmm.
definitely some really strong competition out there, and you definitely faced some challenging lists
Mm-hmm.
more than once during your journey over the weekend. So we figured let's spend some time, since Evan was able to podium, and we are looking at getting potentially some of the other players on the channel in the near future.
Oh
But let's
yes.
walk through, Evan, what happened with you, and take us through your games.
So just real fast, this is the cool call in the morning on Saturday morning before everyone was getting set up. We got here quite early. I drove out to Palm Springs from where I live. So I just wanted to show you how very nice this hall was with these huge chandeliers in there. And during the game day, there was something like 300 people, mostly playing 40K over there. You can see all the little L-shaped walls. But over here in the foreground, this is our beautiful Old World Legends terrain. I know a lot of people have been asking to see photos. Um, but here we're going to talk about the games. So we went over my list last time. So I have a large group of Primal Herd over here on the left-hand side, and I also have a large group of Gore Herd on the right-hand side. Um, Kind of have been changing that ever since. I don't think I need two big blocks like that. And I have a unit of 10 Gore that are in ambush as well. And in particular on this scenario, being able to ambush and show up next to the baggage trains that we were playing with is very, very useful. So we're playing with the baggage trains being represented by these objective markers. So we have one here on the left-hand side that I placed, and a second baggage train. And we're playing with two of them over here. So I have two baggage trains. My opponent, he actually brought these really cool baggage trains that are like Tomb King's chariot carts that have like kind of like a bunch of pile of gold and some supplies on the back of it, or like a sarcophagus. And he has one over here, and he has one over there. So what I was thinking is basically it'd be pretty difficult for him, some of his like slower moving Tomb King's units to get into grips with me if my ambushers show up, even if they don't show up until turn 5, because I didn't really have any way to make the ambush any better. And spoiler alert, that's what happens. I failed my roll for them to show up until turn 5 when they automatically came on. But you know what? That was
Well, that's how it goes. The dice
yeah.
gods giveth, the dice gods taketh away. You never know what's going to happen.
It wasn't that bad though because again they came on turn 5. They walked into the range of the first baggage train and they got me 250 victory points. They didn't die, so great. Um,
Hmm.
Let me explain my deployment a little bit. So I didn't put the Demonology Wizard in a unit because I wanted to, at the start of the game, have a decision on which of the two infantry blocks I wanted to be able to fly forwards using Steed of Shadows. So I had kind of the skirmish ability to kind of look in all directions before I would cast that. Then I could just join the units later. The guy with the yellow cloak is my kind of Hag Tree Fetish level 1 Viletide man. And then the
Hmm.
large chariot here is my Beast Lord who had the Black Maul. So he's just an absolute combat monster. And as we're going to see today, he got into a lot of fights with dragons. So, and then here's obviously my Hearthstone. Um,
But interesting that you set him up in the back, in particular that he's on a chariot. So why were you
oh,
hiding him in the back? Why was he behind that herdstone? Were you trying to not get shot? What was the thought process there?
yeah. Generally, in most of my games, I have my chariots mostly kind of conservatively placed, except for this is the regular Duskor chariot, the core one. This guy's very
Hmm.
expendable. The reason why I took him instead of the Razor Gore in this game is I find that a lot of times with the Razor Gore, I want to flee from a charge. But as soon as you flee from the charge, you can't use your general's leadership to rally anymore, and then the Razor Gore never freaking rallies, and he just runs off the table. And so I really like the idea of having the Tuskor chariot that has a better chance of actually rallying when he's near my high leadership general in the warband block, or just being a little bit higher leadership in general. However, obviously the Razor Gore are really good for catching people who are just trying to run away from you in the first place. So there's definitely a trade-off there. So we'll see how this regular chariot goes. I know a lot of people are excited to run them, or excited, or don't think they're that great. But yeah, I'm hiding from shooting. He's got a lot of Ushabti great bows with their multi wounds 2 shots. I didn't have as many drops as a lot of my opponents, so a lot of the time I had to go down before I saw where, for example, the Tomb King's Dragon got to go, or where like the Casket of Souls with their Light of Death was going to go. So I wanted him to be pretty far back and just not get shot the first turn. A solution to this problem that I've kind of had ever since, and I've been iterating on the list, is I give him Pelt of Midnight, so he has -1 to hit with shooting. I think that against people who actually care about rolling to hit, that would be really useful.
So you're just waiting for your units to get out of his way, or are you trying to teleport him with magic?
So what I did was from the first turn, I used Steed of Shadows to fly the Gore block over to here, and then I marched up with the Dragon Ogres here. He cast the Spectral Vortex right here, and basically my plan was, okay, well I failed to dispel it, even though I was at the range, so screw it. I'm just gonna run and hope I don't have to take any leadership tests. That was my
Hmm.
plan. It worked out
Sometimes
just
it
fine.
works out.
It worked out kind of okay. So I was just like, I have too many guys to worry about panic on these dudes right here with the spiritual vortex, and I'm not anywhere near the general anyway, so it's mostly just that -1 penalty from being near the spiritual vortex. So I was kind of just like,
Hmm.
okay, that's there, but I'm just gonna
But you
ignore it.
were going over his bunker though, right? He had a lot of the artillery and rage firepower on that hill,
Yeah.
and you teleported the unit over there. You were trying to get over there to see if you could take it out, because that's definitely where a lot of the damage output of this list comes from.
Yeah, and on the first turn or two, the Tomb King's Dragon ran all the way over here. I believe this is essentially at the end of my second turn, where the Tomb King's Dragon is in base contact with one of my baggage trains. So if he finishes the turn in base contact with it, or if he starts his next turn in base contact with it, then he gets to destroy it and gets at least 250 victory points. So you can do that with unit strength 5 or more. Like a flying monster, for example, can go and destroy baggage trains, which is an interesting threat that he posed. And so what I had to do is I lined up my battle standard bearer on the Tuskor chariot right here, and my beast lord on the Tuskor chariot over here as kind of a double threat to either charge into the dragon, or to fight him once he like flew past or overran or something like that. So that's kind of why, again, it's a little bit harder to move around, and I think that the
Hmm.
having a Herdstone is amazing for its victory points and its casting ability and all that stuff. But having a big impassable piece of terrain that I usually want near all my stuff can make moving around actually a lot harder. And setting up
Yeah,
like the arcs
definitely
with
get in the way.
my chariots was difficult.
And that's a
Um,
challenge. So, right, that especially when you have that big dragon back there, that's a huge threat to taking out some of your chariots in isolation, or doing a
mhm.
rear charge, and potentially being, getting that meaningful, taking away your rank bonuses and such. So, he is effectively splitting your attention of your force right now, which is a pretty good strategy, right? You're trying to
Yeah,
go for the hill. He wants as much time to whittle you down with his ranged and firepower, while you are being split and having to deal with the dragon behind you. And again, he might just run away with the dragon. If he just held you up for a turn or two, he's already accomplishing what he wants to. So, what did happen though?
So what happened was essentially that he was willing to put his dragon in the path of one of the chariots, and in order to risk getting to be able to get at least 250 victory points early off the bat, especially because trying to get any other kind of unit down here would probably take a while. So that was a good idea. What I ended up doing is I sent my battle standard bearer with his great weapon. He had heavy chaos armor or something like that, or maybe he just had talisman of protection, so I could use my great weapon on the chariot without giving up the armor save of the chariot, right? Because you have to use the armor of the thing you're using. So I sent the
Hmm.
battle standard with his great weapon on straight into the Tomb King, and essentially they tied combat, I believe. After I did some damage to him, he did some damage to me. Tied combat, so he was still in base contact with the baggage train after that round was over, and so he got to destroy it. So he got to destroy it, even though basically I did the only thing I could do and sent one guy in to fight him. Let's see what the next picture is. I also sent up the Primal Herd with the Demonology Wizard in this brick. Again, I didn't have Lore Familiar, so I didn't roll Demonic Vessel in this game, but I did have Steed of Shadows and Demonic Familiars and stuff like that. But
Okay.
basically, I was planning on not getting charged by the chariots right now, and I was just pushing them up right here. Um, let's see what happens in the next round. Yeah, so basically the Tomb King's Dragon, after losing a couple wounds, killed my Battle Standard Bearer, but then I got to charge in with the Beast Lord, and the Beast Lord already had 2 6s on the Gaze of the Gods. That's what the white dice are showing, which means he
Ooh,
had Leadership 10 and Strength 8, or Strength 9.
yeah. The strength is a huge, in particular when fighting a monster like that, because it's very rare to be able to wound them on easier than a 4+. So the fact that you could wound them on twos, that's a huge difference maker.
It made a big difference because when the regular Wargore was having to wound him on 4+, re-rolling because of Armor of the Ages that the Tomb King's
Hmm.
Prince had, or the Tomb King
Yeah,
had.
it's a great item.
Right. Then it wasn't doing as well. But when my Black Maul Strength 9 Beast Lord charged him and was wounding on twos, rerolling ones from being in range of the Herdstone, but also rerolling all the other wounds because of Armor of the Ages, we both eventually realized, oh, I just reroll all of the dice, so we'll just skip that part and roll once. Yeah, but I went in there, and if you don't know this, the Black Maul, you roll a d6 for how many attacks you get to make, And so I have 4 base, and then I think I got like the frenzy result, so I had the 5 attacks base from that, and then I kept rolling like 4, 5, or 6 on the number of attacks he would make as well. And so I was just pumping out a million attacks into this Tomb King's Dragon, and it was doing stomp attacks, for example, and doing attacks with a great weapon on the guy in the back into me. But what ended up happening was that I killed his dragon, and again, it did cost me the Tomb King's Chariot, I'm sorry, the BSB Chariot, and then got this guy down to about 2 wounds left. But I did win eventually with both of them kind of teaming up, which was awesome. It was really fun to fight
Nice.
dragons with a guy on a chariot who was just really angry.
Okay, what happened next then?
So in the meantime over here, the Gore or the Primal Herd were set up to just absorb a charge from the chariots in the front because I was like, I don't think I care about that. He charged his chariots across the vortex that I had, the vortex of chaos, which is usually terrible, but he failed one of his dangerous terrain tests and lost a chariot there. And then he went into the Slugskin Primal Herd block and did like no damage, and then I just killed all of the chariots and they crumbled to death. So that was great. So he just charged me from the front with the chariots, and I just won. I overran, and then on my turn, I charged the Casket of Souls. And you know what's funny is I charged the Casket of Souls, and then I failed to kill the Casket of Souls on that turn.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because you just didn't wound it? What happened?
Yeah, when you charge with the infantry block, they don't have as many ranks of attacks, and the Casket of Souls doesn't have a very large base, or doesn't really have a base at all, really. So the 2-attack Gore in the front didn't really have. I mean, there weren't that many that could make 2 attacks. The champion had a great weapon, so he had a couple, and the general had one. And then I tried to cast Demonic Familiars, which is an assailant spell, to try to wipe out the casket using that ability, and that didn't go off. And so I had this very powerful unit go into the casket, and I just didn't kill it. He did have Light of Protection up on this casket and on the other casket the whole game, so everything was always like -1 to hit with a 6-up ward.
It's effective.
Yeah. Right. We skipped a part here where the Tuskor Chariot charged the 5 skeleton horsemen who were just hanging out, killed all of them, and did a reform. And in the meantime, the Dragoners charged into the skeleton spearmen with the Tomb King. The Scorpion was right next to it, I believe. No, he charged me. Right, yeah. So anyway. So the Scorpion and the skeletons were going into the Dragoners, and what I was thinking was, I'm going to kill so many skeletons that unless if this Scorpion like monster slayers or killing blows one of my Dragoners, then I'll probably win combat versus these skeletons, and then the Scorpion will crumble. But he did killing blow one of the Dragoners to death, and then I did lose combat, and then they broke and fled, and that's when I thought, oh no, they're all going to get run down by this Swift Stride Tomb Scorpion. But I rolled like 9 inches for the flee, and the Tomb Scorpion with Swift Stride rolled like 7. So I just made it away.
Wow, you got lucky.
Incredibly lucky with that.
Super lucky.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, over here on the right, the Gore block just mauled through a bunch of archers and overran into the level 2 priest who's right here. You can't really see him. And that guy had his initiative test to try to get out of the way, and it was like on a 1 or a 2 he gets out of the way, and on a 3+ he fails it, and he rolls like a 3. So he just couldn't get out of the way of the Gore block. So they just go steamrolling through here. But I only realized after I did the overrun that, I exposed the flank of the Gore to these Ushabti who could charge me in the flank. And, Ushabti, with the Great Bows, they still have 3 attacks each. And they're going to flank me and take away my rank bonus. So that's kind of what started to happen next. You can see with the duel between the Dragon and the Beast Lord still going on here. He had 3 wounds left. I probably had 4 left. It was just a nice little nail biter the entire time between these guys here. I finished off the casket, and I sent the chariot and the Dragoners after they finished off the Scorpion into the skeletons again. And then meanwhile, the Ushabti over here killed the Gore, and they've had to flee, and they had to bounce all the way through this, all the way over to here, and they lost about 20 guys to maybe 10 guys to the peril test, which was wild.
That's very wild.
Right, but at the end of the game, that Gore block that mostly died moved into combat with his, or moved into base contact with his first one of his baggage trains, and the ambushing unit, you can see over here, moved into base contact with the other baggage train. So in the last round of the game, I got both baggage trains, and the Bray Shaman with his unit, his big unit infantry, kind of rolled through the skeletons and shredded them to death and overran into this stuff, and then I killed the level 4 wizard. So at the end of the game, the only thing left alive on his side was the Ushabti. And then I had you can see the dice here. I had a 1 wound left Beast Lord on a chariot right there. holding my Herdstone.
Mm-hmm.
So even though this game, it really felt like it was close the entire time, it ended up being that I got like a major victory.
Yeah, well done. All right, so that was game one. So it took a little bit longer because we were describing the
Yeah.
list a bit and such. So let's pick up the pace and talk about game two. You definitely fought something a lot very challenging game two, didn't you?
Yeah, so and because of the score I got in game two, I was playing against Eric, and Eric he was the eventual winner of the game of the tournament, and he got first place. And I also played him in round five. This time around, we were playing on the lava table, which is a little bit of a joke in our community. The right parts here, these are dangerous terrain, and then the rocky parts are open ground. Um, Really, what I was thinking about in this game was basically all you have to do is try to figure out how to deal with the dragons because everything else in his list is mostly just there to support them. So my plan was to either have the dragon ogres just try to fight them and do some damage before they die, or bait him into getting somewhere that he would end up getting vile tided a couple times because I still had my general over here and I had the hag tree fetish man over here. He got the first turn and he flew up like this. On my turn, I moved forward, and the Hag Tree Fetish man right here unleashed his very scary shooting into the prince, who was over here, and the Archmage was over there. And he got 5 wounds off the prince. So I think the prince was on 4 left after the first Viletide shot.
Wow, that's
Yes.
lucky.
Well, yeah, he rolled none of his ward or regen saves against any of that.
I mean, sometimes that happens. I bet he was a little nervous when you were able to do that kind of damage out of the gate.
Yeah. So this was when I first realized that having a small unit of like skirmishing gore that I can just put somewhere is actually really useful when
Hmm.
fighting armies like this because I really liked having this
Yep.
to kind of block up the double dragon. I didn't want 2 dragons to charge the same unit. That was essentially the thing we were
Yep.
trying to avoid.
They just get in the way. They're quality speed bumps.
Yeah. I had my Beast Lord set up right here so that if someone ended up in combat over here, he could maybe charge into them that way if they were still over there. Again, it's very difficult to maneuver a combat lord who's on a chariot when he's trying to chase down people who fly. But that's essentially what I'm doing.
Hmm.
I'm baiting with my other units that he wants to try to murder with dragons, and I'm trying to send my dragon murderer into them afterwards. In the meanwhile, he moved all of his like scoring cavalry units within range of the objectives, where at the same time, I can't do the same thing because if I run that far forward, the dragons have their pick of the litter on what they can eat. So in this matchup, I'm on the defensive, essentially. I'm like sitting here
Hmm.
just bunkering
Hmm.
up. And
Hmm.
because of the match play guide, whoever's willing to run forward closer to the middle gets to have the points. So he was getting more objective points right now.
Yeah, pretty critical. It definitely changes the way you play the game, and that's what we really want out of the match play guide is creating scenarios and missions that force engagement, where you can't just stand back, and you have to move forward and deal with the opponent, which can be challenging in this case when you have dragons that have such a huge threat range.
Yeah. So what he ended up doing was he ended up sending a Skycutter and one of the prince who was already wounded at this point into the Dragon Ogres. I was fine with this because honestly, for their points cost, I'm super happy with just getting to have a couple of Strength 7 attacks into something like the Skycutter or the Dragon, and I had the regular Chariot over here on the left hand side able to countercharge into something later on. So this was all in a way going well for me. His Reavers were over here on the all the way right hand side outmaneuvering my very slow blocks. This is why I also wanted, and in my later list I have this, more little groups of 5 or 10 man units of gores that are just hanging out, either getting in the way or threatening to charge units like Fast Cab that do this next to me.
Hmm.
Okay, apparently I got really into the game and I didn't take pictures for a little while. But generally, what ended up happening was that the combination of the Viletides was able to do a lot of damage to and finish off the prince after he beat up and killed the Dragon Ogres. My Tuskar chariot went in and killed the first Skycutter over here. Oh, actually, no, the Dragon Ogres weren't even dead. There was still a guy left. So he went in and he didn't pursue, I believe. And then I was able to keep going over there. The end of the game, he stole my Herdstone from me by moving a unit of fast cavalry in base contact with it like this. And partway through the game, I had a Beast Lord charge in and fight the Archmage on the Moon Dragon, and I did an absolute crapload of damage to it, but I did die and leave the Moon Dragon with 1 wound left. So if I had gotten even a single Viletide off on the Moon Dragon after he had died or before he had gone into combat, I would have beaten that dragon. But it's just because he had
Wow.
more wounds than me that I ended up not coming out on top on that. Because the Beast Lord, with his weapon skill, his number of attacks, and the Black Maul, he can just shred through a dragon faster
He
than you can kill
absolutely
him.
can. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
In the right circumstances, absolutely.
Yeah, so we ended the game here with I was up by about 200 victory points. Another really critical thing that happened, you got the little Sisters Avalon over here. They did 1 wound to my level 1 shaman who had the Vile Tide, right? And that shaman was trying to Vile Tide the Archmage. And my luck was going great for me until this point when I rolled the miscast. And the Vile Tide man blew himself
Hmm.
up and then
Oh
didn't finish
no!
off Eric's dragon. So because I rolled that specific miscast, even with a +3 to cast, I didn't kill his dragon and I did blow himself up and I cost myself the game because I was up by about 230 victory points. And if that guy just hadn't have died, then I wouldn't have lost against Eric. So
So
that's what,
basically, if you just hadn't cast the spell and gotten greedy, you would have won.
yeah, probably. But and also I also would have won Mike if I had been closer to my Hearthstone than he has as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
what
So the
ended up
point is,
happening.
really, really close game.
Right. Yeah. Definitely a close game, and you'll see how we go in the rematch later. Uh,
Yep.
so this was my round 3. I was playing against an Empire player. This is Giovanni's Empire here. In this game, he had 3 cannons and a Hellblaster all in one little spot next to each other right there. So one thing that did is it gave me a very clear arc of sight to try to hide all my stuff from the cannons, especially if he got the first turn. So that's why I put my all my chariots either behind units like the Herdstone, where you couldn't cannonball this guy because of the Herdstone, or behind the impassable terrain pieces so that I could hide my chariots from getting absolutely pummeled by cannons. Because if you put 3 cannons into the single chariot, even if they do have a ward save, I'm not super excited about that outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, I started outside the unit because I wanted to Steed of Shadow something up the board on the first turn. And he's planning out his the only problem with the strategy that I'm doing right here is that the only unit I can't hide from the cannons is the one he fired all of them at, which is the Dragon Ogres, and they took a lot of cannonballs.
Yep, that's going to do some damage because what did he have? 3 cannons and a Hellblaster
Yeah.
in this event.
Mhm.
That's a lot of firepower.
Yep. So I ambushed my Gore. They're going to show up later. I sent forward the remaining Dragon Ogres into close combat to sit in front of the Steam Tank. I used the Chalice of the Dark Rain on my first turn to turn off all of his War Machine shooting on turn 2. The only thing is, the Steam Tank isn't a War Machine, so the Steam Tank still got to shoot, which was interesting to find out. I believe it used
Mm-hmm.
Grape Shot and did more wounds on these Dragon Ogres. I have the Beast Lord over here
Yeah,
on the left-hand
hurts.
side because, as I was telling Giovanni this whole time, I don't care whether you charge me with your Furious Charge White Lion or White Wolf Knights. My Beast
White
Lord
Wolf,
with
yeah.
his he's got Strength 7, AP 3 on anywhere between 5 and 10 attacks. I will just
Yep.
eat your whole unit in one turn.
Yeah,
And
unless the dice are in his favor and somehow he could do enough damage, but being on the chariot, how many wounds does he have on that chariot?
7.
Yeah, that's a lot of wounds to chew through. It's extremely unlikely that that's even possible.
Also, I
If
made my
that was
guy
that
initiative set 6, so I have Uncanny Senses in this build. So if he charges me, we attack at the same time.
yeah, so no matter what, you could do that back and forth. But again, just the odds of him being able to get that many wounds through, it's just not going to happen unless some extreme luck really goes in his favor.
Right. So basically, what happened was he sent his Demigryph Knights forward, and on the first turn, I moved forward, and then I just Vile Tided the Demigryph Knights, and I Steed of Shadowed the Primal Herd all the way over here. So this was the mission where we had to get the table quarters. So I wanted some bodies over here, and I also just but yeah. So I Vile Tided these Demigryph Knights, and then because they took a lot of damage, they just backed up past the forest. So they couldn't do it again. In the meantime, he flew his Empire General over here to start threatening charging things. I'm not worried whatsoever about the Empire General going into this Gore block because I've got the Slug Skin, I've got a lot of static combat resolution, so he could just kill my unit champion and lose combat and run away. I don't care too much if he does that, right? And in the
Hmm.
meanwhile, I'm still positioning my chariots. This is the Battle Standard BR1, and this is the regular one, because this one is expendable. So I'm just running this guy at the enemy and saying, look, if you don't shoot a cannon at him, if you don't charge him, then
Yep.
what's he going to do, right? And if you do, he's not worth that much. So he's very much like an expendable little missile shooting at people.
Yep.
He chose to send the Empire General to charge that chariot, which is fine by me.
Interesting.
It keeps and what I did was I fled from combat so that I would leave the Empire General out of combat, and I would get to have another round of Vile Tiding this
Hmm.
dude. And then he started to move forward with the
Yep. And now
Democrats.
he's not in the center of the board, so definitely exposed at this point. Yep.
Right. Yeah. He fired a cannonball. He bounced it just through dragon ogres and into the chariot, I believe, and he kept backing up with his knights because he was very afraid of the knights fighting the beast lord. And then he started because of where my gore block, the ones that ambushed, came on. He had to start using his halberders to turn around and try to fight them because otherwise these guys could just eat through all of his war machines.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing in particular for the Empire on his side is their war machine crew are very weak, right? And it's harder to defend it with the army that he's brought. So in particular because he didn't split his forces, he's trying to he's really trying to maximize a single engineer
Oh no, he had
for
3
trying.
engineers, or he had multiple.
Oh, did he have?
No, maybe he
Did
had
he?
one
Oh, okay.
engineer, but he just tried to
I'm
put
pretty
every
sure he
single.
had one.
Yeah, he put every single war machine within range of the one engineer.
Exactly right. That's what
Yeah,
he was
right.
doing. And so that, in which, so, because he's just trying to be cost effective on points. So I get that, for the cost effect efficiency, but at the same time, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? So if that engineer gets taken out, or again, if you get into combat with one of that war machines, typically once the first one falls, the other are going to fall as well. So that actually makes him significantly more vulnerable to ambushers like what you brought.
Right. So I started moving up. I wasn't super afraid of the Empire General anymore because he only had a couple wounds left. The Demigryph Knights got charged by my BSB chariot, and they just decided to flee because they were going to get hit in the flank and take impact hits and stuff. Again, when he had a unit that wasn't skirmish, that wasn't fly 10 or whatever, it was a lot harder for him to try to reposition once they already got caught out somewhere where they were outmatched, right? So they were running over there. Now, what happened over here on the left-hand side is that the Beast Lord was trying to go towards the Knights, and the Knights just ran right past him over here on the left, up past the picture. And a steam tank came up behind me and tried to grape shot me in the butt. And meanwhile, over here, I'm thinking, look, I'm running out of turns. I got to try to get to some of his stuff because it might look like I'm winning, but actually, he's killed all the Dragon Ogres, and I haven't really killed any of his units yet. The Demigryph Knights are still over half, and this guy is only worth a couple, 200 points if he's not all the way dead. So I was
Dragon ogres are worth a lot, and then your general, right? That beast lord, like he's been hanging
the
out.
Beast Lord's not the general. That's one of the tricks of the list is that the shaman is the general.
How many points is the beast lord over there?
350.
Okay, right. So, but he's just playing footsie with those the knights over there, right? So he hasn't been scoring points. He's just been in a standstill.
So right now I was worried about him being up on kill points, and then maybe I get 2 of the zones, like these 2 zones, for like 350 victory points, but it would end up being a tie or something. And I was like, well, I got to desperately try to get into grips with this army. So I had my ambushing unit over here that he ended up having to fight with his halberdiers, but I was perfectly happy with that. What I ended up doing is I actually just fled off the table, and he couldn't redirect his charge anywhere, so he had to chase off after me. So his halberdiers.
Why he didn't hold his ground? He failed his test.
No, so when a unit flees off the table and you've declared a charge against it, you can redirect or you have to keep going. Those are your only options. So, yeah, if somebody flees your charge, you can't stop charging them.
I can't think that that's ever happened to me.
So I have
just fled. You chose death.
Yeah, I chose death, but I also chose for his wizard, who was in the halberdier unit, and the whole halberd block, to not be here anymore for a whole turn. And what I did on my turn was, now that they weren't there anymore, I said, cool, I'm going to cast Steed of Shadows on the Primal Herd, and they're going to land exactly right here. Now, that wouldn't have been possible if that unit was still around.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, keep going.
Okay. Then eventually his Emperor General tried to steal the Hearthstone from me, and I Vilepetted him to death. That's what ended up happening over there. On the right-hand side, this was amazing. So I turned to face the Knights, who now weren't going to be able to use Drilled to get past me or anything. And I just gave the rear to the Steam Tank, because I said, you know what? I can beat a Steam Tank. And I did.
Really?
Yeah, especially because I was under where I was. He wasn't going to get impact hits going into me, so he had his stomp attacks and the 2 engineer attacks.
So close.
Yeah,
not getting the impact hits makes a big difference.
Being able to position chariots is the hardest thing in the game, but if you do it right, the chariots can pull way above their weight class. It's just positioning them is very difficult. So you can see that I've got my BSB chariot over here. He's threatening to charge any of the war machines. We've got the Primal Herd block that got Steed of Shadow over here. His halberdiers showed up, but again, it was my turn. They weren't going to be able to charge when they came onto the table. So he had rallied and had put them here, but he couldn't charge them either. So they were just hanging out. and the halberds were hanging out, and then all of my stuff was just in his face. Finally, he charged me with the steam tank, and then I won combat against the steam tank. But I think I did roll the frenzy result, which was actually bad for me. So when I rolled the frenzy result, I don't get the extra attack because I didn't charge. But my Beast Lord now has to pursue after the steam tank when he backs up 2 inches.
All right, so confirmed looking at the book. Yeah, if you charge a unit that has fled, you can't hold. You're going.
Yeah.
Either you're redirecting or you're going, even if it doesn't say any caveats if they fled off the table. I've never had that happen in a game. Well, that was very clever. Now, Evan, did you actually know that was going to happen, or is that just a nice coincidence?
Yeah, I gave him a dilemma. I said, look, you either have to charge these gore block, where if you win, you'll have to take a restraint test to turn around. Or,
all right, that's a very clever move. Well done, sir.
Or I just choose to flee, and now your whole unit's going off the table with me for a little while, and when they come back, they can't charge. So now they're going to not be protecting his artillery for multiple turns.
Plus, it had his level 4 in there, right, too?
Yeah.
So
then I got all my spells off, like Steed of Shadows, for example, because there's no dispel.
That is very clever. Okay, all right, keep going.
So what ended up happening is I had to pursue after the steam tank, and I kept fighting it for a few rounds. Now, I was down to like 5 wounds left, but the steam tank was also on 5 wounds. So I did 5 wounds of damage to the steam tank because my guy was strength 7 AP3 base with his anywhere between 5 and 10 attacks. But he decided that he wanted to kill me and potentially win the game by getting enough points. Again, we've been a pretty low scoring game so far, and he charged all of his knights into my Beast Lord. Well, guess what I did? I said, cool, instead of attacking the steam tank, I'm going to attack the knights. And there's 8 knights here. I killed 6 of them in 1 round of combat. And they did no damage to me at all.
Okay, interesting.
Because my guy's hitting them on 3s, rerolling 1s from Primal Fury. He rolled like 8 attacks, and I just hit with 7 of them, because I hit on 3+, and then I just wound on 2s. And if I wound, he has no save at all, because since he used his Cavalry Hammer, he has heavy armor and barding, so he has a 4 up armor save. So I have AP3, he has no save at all against my attack. That was pretty crazy.
Love it.
So I got a lot of points from mostly killing the White Wolf. I ended up, on the last round of the game, I pursued into them and got the last 2 guys over here. And then the Empire General, he got murdered, and I ended up still having my Herdstone. And then I got some points for being in 2 of the table quarters. What's actually weird, though, is it took several turns, but I didn't actually get that many of the artillery. I only got 2 of the cannons at this point because of some of the artillery was able to flee, and then the other stuff didn't panic when it got fled through. And then it rallied as well. So some of the artillery got out of the way, and I only got into some of it. The Chariot Man also, he only got into the same thing happened. He charged a Hellblaster, it fled, and then I didn't get any points. So it was interesting because you can do a flee reaction with artillery pieces. You just can't if you lose combat and you roll fallback in good order. The unit doesn't move; it just is removed. If that happens, if that makes sense. So a lot of people get that wrong. You can flee as a charge reaction with artillery.
Yes, that's constant because old previous editions you couldn't. That's why I think why they're thinking that and such. But you definitely can. All right, so that wraps up that game. So we're on to what game number is this?
4.
Okay.
So I knew after how well I did
day
in the
2,
first
right?
day. Yeah, this is day 2, and after the first day,
so you got to go have dinner, got to go rest, come back, ready for some Cathay. Ooh.
Yeah, so I knew who I was going to play because I looked at the rankings, and Eric was number 1, and the other Eric was number 2. So I figured they had to play each other in round 4. So the double dragon lists were going to fight against each other in round 4. And then in round 4, I was in 3rd place with number points and number battles 1. And the guy in 4th place was the Cathay player who had the 3 balloons, the 3 lanterns.
Joseph brought a very, very competitive list. It was a very strong show.
It's a very competitive list. In particular, it's very good at murdering infantry that have no armor at all. However, he is very new to Old World, and he's only played about 10 games. So I was able to pull a victory off of this because he positioned wrong and made some mistakes that were things he won't make again because he
I can tell you Joseph's a very good player in 40K. I'm telling you, just give him a couple months to ramp up, and he's going to be doing just fine at events. He's a very good player. So walk us through this journey, though.
So the way I saw it, I really didn't want to get double. So there's a Cathayan cannon on this hill behind this balloon. I didn't want to get double cannoned through my general, and I didn't want to get a double cannoned on the first turn through my BSB. And I can't guarantee that I'm going to roll the first turn, right? So I had to position them in such a way so that I could ignore, not eat cannonballs on the first turn with these units, right? I couldn't deploy knowing where his balloons were going to go. The thing I was most concerned with is them all being shoved in my face, where the only option I have is to charge him and get stand and shoot it again. So he can shoot me on his turn. I charge, he does stand and shoot and fire and flee, and then I get shot twice. And that was the thing I was most concerned with. And then I put a single Tuskor Chariot. Again, this is one of the reasons why I really like to bring a single Tuskor Chariot as like a chaff unit, because its job is to just run towards this cannon that's on the hill. And if it gets cannonballed, well, that's good because it's getting shot instead of something else that I don't want to get shot at, right? Or it doesn't get shot and it charges into the cannon and probably wins. I'm not sure if a Razor Gore would win versus a Cathayan crew with an Ogre loader, but this guy certainly could because of his extra impact hits, his extra unit strength, stuff like that. Primal Horde over here, a little skirmishing unit. I didn't ambush in this game because I already had a plan for how to deal with the cannon over here with this guy, and I thought by the time these guys showed up, maybe they wouldn't do anything, so I wanted to have another screen unit. And then I put my general behind the forest, and I was just going to risk rolling the dangerous terrain test, and spoiler alert, I rolled a 1. Spoiler alert, he lost 3 wounds to a tree.
I mean, serves you right. You're going through dangerous terrain. This is a spooky graveyard, sir. Look at that tree. Very scary.
So this was the end of my first turn. I moved these guys up. I lost several wounds. Oh, and I think I rolled stupidity on his Gaze the Gods on the first turn. So I was really
the gods, are fickle gods. They are the chaos gods.
Yes.
See, now if you had been, praying to, as I told most of my opponents, if they've been praying to, Mork and Gork, right? They are full of blessings.
Yeah.
They blessed me many times.
So what my original plan was to pressure the center of the, and again, we were playing on the hill objective in this game, so this was the objective in the center, was to pressure the objective of the hill, have stay within range of the Herdstone, and threaten his units that don't fly, the Jade Warriors, the Sentinel, and the Cavalry, by just shoving everything up practically as far as it goes. Other than rolling stupidity and losing 3 wounds, I thought, okay, that's pretty good. But what I couldn't do is I couldn't get really any Viletide off, because since I didn't roll Steed of Shadows in this game, I couldn't actually move my Viletide men far enough to get there, and he specifically put his lanterns out of the range that I could move and then also still cast it. So there was no way for that to happen. I felt pretty good about this at the time. You can see how far the chariot gets to go, because again, 14-inch movement on the first round, I go pretty far.
Yep, absolutely.
This is the end. This is partway through my turn 2. So on his first turn, he moved these 2 lanterns over here. One of them's the character, and one of them's the non-character. And they did, between the bombing runs that each rolled the 5-inch blast template of strength 5, and then all of the Dragonfire bombs, he killed 29 of the 30 Primal Herd in 1 turn. With two rounds to 2 guys shooting, and that was it. So a 280-point infantry unit got mostly massacred. Because they were dead, look at this last picture, because they were dead, he was able to then also shoot. These guys got charged, right, by the Lancers, and because of that, my Viletide Shaman had no lone character protection anymore. He was just hanging out by himself, because these Lancers charged these Gore right here, and they all had to rank up. And as soon as they ranked up, they were no longer the closer unit for him. They weren't within the 3 inches, so this guy was just targetable. And the Jade Lantern, or the Jade Sentinel he took, had the Fireball spell.
Yep.
And he just said, "Oh, I'll use my Jade Sentinel to try to fireball this dude." And he rolled an 11 to cast, and he just fireballed my shaman to death on turn 1.
Oh, well, serves you right. Wow, but turn 1, that's brutal.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I did pull off a play that a new player would not see coming, but an experienced player would. So what I did is I shoved these skirmishing Gore up in front, because I want the Lancers to charge the Gore, have me rank up like this, and then when he overruns, whether he overruns or not, he'll hit my unit of the Gore block that has the Shaman in it. And I have Demonic Vessel on this unit, and my Beast Lord on Chariot will also be able to see where they end up. So all of that will mean that they're going to be sitting there where all of my melee guys will actually get to hurt them. So I'm perfectly willing to sacrifice these 10 dudes to be able to feed his big
in a heartbeat. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And again, like you said, I don't think he'll make that mistake again.
Yeah, and if you don't make that mistake, I did try to put a lot of pressure with the Dragoners just running up as fast as they could, ignoring the Lanterns. Again, because the Lanterns weren't in my way, I just kind of focused on the units that don't fly, and I tried to shove everything up that way. Now, after that first round of shooting, I felt like, oh, well, there goes the game, because I didn't really think I was going to be able to win at that point. This lantern over here did a lot of damage to my battle standard bearer. On the first turn of shooting, he got him down to 3 wounds out of left out of 6. So that wasn't great. And then, because again, this is partway through my turn too, so I had the single guy left from my primal herd who didn't fail his panic test, charged into the Jade Warriors, and the Dragoners. I believe it was essentially the Dragoners and the Gore Block that failed to roll Demonic Vessel, and the Beast Lord. They all went into the Lancers, and there were still 2 guys left at the end somehow. I didn't kill all of them. And because he fell back in good order with the Stubborn, he just put himself right here to kind of block up me being able to overrun and get all into his other stuff. So that I was just kind of stuck here. In the meantime, the Lanterns are absolutely massacring me. And my only protection right now against the shooting is to try to stay in combat so he can't shoot at me. Even though he might be able to bombing run somebody that then scatters on top of me, which he tried to do a couple times.
Okay.
So on his turn, he sent his Jade Warriors forwards and started getting into the combat. Again, I was not too worried about this because then now my Beast Lord has more dudes to murder, and my Gore Block can try to kill the last 2 Lancers. And as long as this is all one combat, then all that combat resolution gets to go towards me. And in the meantime, my very vulnerable Gore Block that's over here on the right that still has like 17 guys left is not getting Dragon Firebombed to death. So I'm very happy about that. So his Lanterns were very effective for that turn where nothing was in combat, but as soon as stuff got into combat, I wasn't as worried. His Sentinel just kind of walked forwards and allowed the Dragoners to be in charge range. I, again, don't think he should do that. This Sentinel is not super happy about fighting 4 Dragoners in combat.
No, 4 Dragoners is... That's going to beat up most things in the game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my Beast, my Wargore BSV on the Chariot has tried to turn around to face his Lantern over here, but his Lantern just flew past me. So now, again, I'm just not facing wherever his Lantern's going to be, and his Lantern's over here. And the Lantern's still shooting, because the Lantern can just shoot in 360, regardless of where it is. So what I was concerned with right now is that maybe I kill his whole army, but my whole army will be dead, and he'll have the 3 Lanterns left. That's what I thought might happen. That's not what happened. Oh, I guess this is rotated wrong. Can I rotate that?
Nope. Just have to do it live.
There.
Oh, there you go. Ta-da.
So all this stuff over here is dead. I reformed. Did I change the picture? No. Okay, yeah. So we were still stuck in combat over here. Okay, yeah, sorry. It just had to rotate. Yeah. So we ended up with the Dragoners in combat with the Sentinel. I came up with this brilliant plan that after the combat with the Jade Warriors to reform the Gore Block that had the Wizard in it into Skirmish for the sole purpose of just getting hit less by all of the shooting of multiple Lanterns because I had no other way to stop them. Remember that my main Valka guy is dead, so this guy can cast it, but he wasn't doing enough to try to kill an entire Lantern or anything. And my BSB got blown up this turn as well, so the BSB got shot to death without doing anything. And I think that my Beast Lord over here rolled the Frenzy result, and so he again had to pursue after the Jade Warriors, who fell back with Stubborn as well. So the Jade Warriors fell back all the way over there, and my Gore Block couldn't make it all the way over there into them. So I just did the reform.
Got excited. Yep.
But meanwhile,
Frenzy
the Beast
is
Lord...
thing.
Yeah. And the Beast Lord is... What's really interesting about this build and this dude, he's perfectly happy going into infantry, because I have the impact hits, and then I have like 10 attacks to try to kill a champion with, so I'll get max overkill. A lot of characters don't want to do that anymore because you'll get like 2 combat res and then lose combat and get outnumbered, right? But
for sure.
This guy on the Chariot is actually pretty happy with going, yeah, I'll just charge right in the front of a bunch of infantry. I don't care. And then Dragoners went into the Sentinel, and what was really great is the Sentinel killed like 2 Dragoners, and then the Dragoners killed him. And
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I killed him with stomps because I did 4 wounds with my group weapon attacks with the Dragon Ogres, and then I had 6 stomp attacks, and I actually rolled 3 6s to wound on the stomp attacks, and he just failed his armor saves.
Wow, that is very unlikely. Yeah, bad luck there. Ooh.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over here, the Chariot did actually make it into his cannon. He tried to shoot 1 cannonball at it and rolled a 1 to wound. He tried to stand and shoot at me and didn't wound me, or did 1 wound on the stand and shoot. And then I got in there and did 4 impact hits and killed the ogre with the impact hits. And then my Chariot, just with its regular attacks, killed the crew. So I just killed off his cannon with the Chariot, which was actually amazing.
Interesting.
And so near the end of the game here, eventually all the wizard left the gore behind because they were all going to get massacred. And he ran his Jade Warriors up to try to take the objective when he realized, oh, I've got 9 models in my infantry unit. I can't hold the hill anymore. That sucks.
That's a problem.
Right, but he can try to contest the Herd Stone. So he was sitting next to the Herd Stone, and in the meanwhile, I was sending the remaining Dragoners to try to get into these 2 dudes, and I had my Beast Lord on the Chariot. Actually, what happened was the Beast Lord on the Chariot beat the Jade Warriors. They fell back behind a low linear obstacle, so the Beast, my general couldn't actually go after them. He had to just stay there, and then he had his lantern was right over here, and on my turn, I charged his lantern with my general, and it was the 10 wound general lantern who had like 10 wounds left and a 5-up armor, 5-up ward, right? And I was like, well, this sucks because I have frenzy, so I had to charge. I thought he's just going to stand and shoot and fire and flee, and I won't be able to get to him. But he didn't do that. He just said, I'm going to stand and shoot and stay here. I'm not going to fire and flee. And I was like, okay. And I made it there, and I did 7 wounds of damage in 1 turn to him.
Oh, brutal.
And then he tried to do his like roll to float away, and he rolled an 11 on his leadership test to float away.
Oh, that is a problem.
So he couldn't float away after losing combat, and I got to pursue into him and then murder him.
All right, so let's wrap up this game. What happened?
Basically, I ended up winning. I really didn't think I had a good shot after that first turn, but basically a couple of movement mistakes, like with the Lancers and the Sentinel, and that final thing with his general gave me a ton of points. So hopefully this shows people how you can potentially beat the Lantern list.
Yep, the lanterns are very, very strong, but they definitely have weaknesses like everything else. And in particular, you could see how making a small mistake can suddenly have some pretty large ripple effects. So on to the final round, again, where ultimately you finished 3rd place, so did exceptionally well at the event, not easy to do. So tell us about the final round.
So in the final round, I was playing against Eric again, and he had his double dragon list. He wasn't finished deploying at this point. But I realized later that I had essentially lost this game in the deployment, and I'll explain why in a second. We had 4 objective tokens on the 4 corners, and he had 3 scoring units. He had essentially his Reavers, his 2 units of Silverhelms, so they could all differently score. But because one of the objectives in his deployment zone, he kind of just left 5 of his Silverhelms to just sit on this objective and not do anything the entire game, which I thought was kind of a massive waste, but he was perfectly happy doing that. And my problem is that where I deployed, I had 2 big pieces of impassable terrain in my deployment zone, and they were going to split up my army. And without my army staying together, being able to fight the dragon all together, I really basically lost this game already, because I was concerned with him putting his dragons over here. Because again, I had to deploy my entire army before the dragons went down, so I didn't know where they were going to be by the time I was done deploying. And I left my Lord, which last game had a hard time chasing the dragons down, so I wanted him in the middle, somewhere he could get to where he wanted to be to fight somebody. And I left him here, and I have my 2 Viletide guys right here, but the Dragoners are all by themselves. And that was a big, big mistake. And there's this big impassable terrain piece between it. So in his first turn, he flew both dragons up together right in front of my Dragoners, who, if I charge, I have to fight both dragons at once. I mean, I think that maybe I should have just charged, because at the very least then I would have gone before the Star Dragon attacks, and these guys would have gotten to make their attacks before the Star Dragons got to go. What I decided to do instead was I wanted to try to bait, using the Dragoners as bait, that if he beat them, he would be stuck behind this impassable terrain and not be able to reform and charge me again on the turn afterwards, right?
Yep. So you're making a choice. You're either trying to hope for some positioning, or you could try and charge in and knowing that it's going to end poorly, but how much damage can you inflict before, so hopefully they're wounded so someone else can finish them off.
Like, for example, what if I charge them in, lost combat, and I give ground even, and he reforms and faces the gore block over here, and then on his turn he gets to charge them or something with both dragons and the Silverhelms or something. So I didn't want to give him a free reform during my turn. In the meantime, having the Hearthstone is yet another piece of impassable, so it was really creating a lot of roadblocks. I couldn't send my Beast Lord over through here and have my Shaman get within range to do a Viletide on the first turn. So I made the decision to send my Gore block forward, use their open order pivot to get the Viletide guy a little bit closer. Because again, that really helps you. When you have a open order unit, you can move and you can pivot, and it lets you move a little bit further when you have, for example, a magic missile. but I couldn't also
Hmm.
send the Beast Lord this direction, so I sent him this way so that if the dragons killed the dragon ogres and overran off the table, I could then react to that when they showed back up. Or if he killed them and reformed, I would at the very least not have something behind me. So that was the plan. In the meantime, I
Hmm.
thought there's basically nothing going on this left-hand side of the table, so I sent up the Tuskor Chariot, the little screen of the Gore guys to get within range of the objective, and the Primal Herd just to all go hang out over here and try to deal with his running around skirmishing nonsense. What happened on his turn is he sent both dragons into the Dragon Ogres, and he just basically didn't move any at all with anybody else. He had some. The main thing he did is he had some Reavers get within range of the objective where they were closer than I was, so he could get some points. Because again, doesn't matter how many guys I have over here. If he just is closer to the objective than me, he gets the points. And he just shot some mostly non-consequential arrows and some bolt thrower shots. But he's still setting up this massive pincer move with the Silver Helms and the Skycutters to murderize something that'll be right here. And you'll see what that is later on. And in the meantime, I have 2 dragons going into these guys with no ability to support it. So he kills all of them in one turn, and he regened all of the damage the Dragon Ogres did. So the Dragon Ogres died without doing any damage to these 2 dragons, because I got like 5
Brutal.
wounds through.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, 5 wounds through or so on the 2 dragons, and when they had a 6-up armor, 6-up ward, 5-up regen on this guy, or 6-up, 5-up, 5-up on the other guy, they just passed all of it.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge is you're like, okay, well, this is the weaker target, so I'm going to at least pummel my attacks on the weaker target to get some damage through. But the fact that the High Elf army has that 5-up regen as a common magic item, very challenging to deal with that.
Yeah. I was sending the Gore block forward to try to threaten to magic missile any of this stuff, because I'm perfectly happy if he
Hmm.
wants to charge both Skycutters and the Silverhelms into the front of these guys by themselves. I'll take that fight. I don't mind. But in the meantime, I just wanted some points. Now I created a major problem, and I'm assuming most people aren't going to see it. So this is how I ended my turn. I believe it was 2, where I have my Beast Lord General in theory, able to charge the Moon Dragon after he like wins combat and this guy falls back in good order against the Moon Dragon, right? Because this is my beast, my BSB. That's what I thought might happen. What he did instead was he took both dragons and marched and flew them both next to each other right here. Because I left a block big enough for them both. Because since these guys are on a 60 by 100 base, they can just go
Yep.
where the hell they want.
Yeah, it is such a huge advantage, in particular on these behemoth size, some of the best stat dragons in the game, that they're still on these smaller base because that's what the older models were on those base. It is a massive advantage that they were on that smaller base rather than the 100 by 150 that the larger, more recent models are based on. So it will be interesting to see as we go forward to this game and to later editions how they address the base size variation between different monsters, because obviously right now they're supporting multiple editions of models, and so they're trying to make sure whatever edition of model you have, you could put it on something that's playable. But as soon as you start getting to the more competitive levels, there's some pretty big advantages to how it's being played.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind if every dragon tiered creature was on the 100 by 150. It would make what's about to happen not only, which is kind of ridiculous, but it was going to make what's about to happen not be possible. And when I've got like chariots, he was able to get out of the arcs of my 2 combat characters while putting his 2 guys in a position to just murder my general and all of this gore block on the next turn. You'll see what happens there. In the meanwhile, I charged the Tuskor chariot into the Reavers, who were able to flee and not get caught because I don't have any Swift Stride stuff. And then on his turn, he was able to rally and run right past me back into the range of the objective again. So he was just constantly annoying me, and since I had no short bows, no Viletide over here, or anything to do anything to these guys, they were able to just keep moving around and staying at unit strength 10 to control the objective without ever taking any damage. So here, he flies the 2 dragons right here, and he moves kind of a final time to set up this massive multi-charge. And so this is the end of his third. This is the end of his 3rd turn, where he sets this up here. And now with this block here, and remember, I didn't roll Steed of Shadows this game. If I had, maybe I could have flown my block over to the side of the Skycutter and landed right here, facing this way. And then the 2 dragons wouldn't have been able to see me, and then I wouldn't be in here. But because I didn't have that spell, these guys, there's no way they can not die now. There's nothing I can do. And so what would you do in this situation? There's no way these chariots can charge in to help them. There's no way that they can move anywhere where they don't die. So what I need to do is I need to use them dying to the best advantage I can possibly have and try to have the position of all of his units be where I want them to be. So what I did was I left the unit that's about to die behind with my general, and he left the unit, and I walked this unit right into the kill zone so that when they all died, the dragons would kind of overrun into his own men, and they wouldn't go into anything else. That was basically the idea.
So what happened?
So I left the general over here, where he could hide behind the woods from the shooting, but he was still within range of these dudes. And I faced the dragons in the front so I could challenge one of them if I wanted to. But I ended up deciding that I would rather it be the case that all of the Gores died, because then he can't overrun, or he can't chase after a fleeing guy. Because what's going to happen is he's going to send the Silverhelms into the rear, right? And the Silverhelms unit strength 12. So as soon as the Gore flee, they're going to flee away from the rear of the Silverhelms, not away from the dragons, which means they're going to flee this direction. And what I don't want that to do is for him to flee, and then they chase me with both dragons and both go into, like, the Beast Lord or something. And I thought that was possible, but I prefer that they just all die instead. And so I wanted them all to die, and guess what? There was one left. There was one guy left alive at the end.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And because he had one guy left alive with double ones to not run away, he broke and fled, ran this way, and let his dragon pursue into my chariot. Now, again, if these guys had died to a man, the only thing he could have done is reform to face me, but I'd still have a 3-inch charge with the Beast Lord that would get impact hits, and I would go first in combat. But instead, he got to chase after the Gore, hit my Beast Lord, and then he got to go in. And remember, I've gotten no Vile Tides off. This Prince is on full health. So this game is not going well for me, and he's been able to outposition me, mostly because the impassable on my side of the board has made my movement harder. So let's see the glorious... Yeah. You should not let this happen to yourself, guys. This is not good. Yeah. On the other hand, some people might be worried, oh, are you worried that if these guys all died, the Skycutter could overrun and hit my general here? No, not worried about that. He can probably beat them in combat.
Oh, this is all sorts of bad.
Yeah. So there were 28 of these guys alive. He killed 27 of them in this round of combat. What happened next was both dragons were able to run into my Beast Lord. I only had to fight one of them, obviously, because of the challenge rules, and I fought against the Prince. It didn't happen until my turn, so on my turn, I was able to roll Gaze the Gods. I rolled, like, the extra toughness, so I was pretty tough. I was toughness 6, and I fought his dragon, right? But at the same time, I still lost combat, and I still gave ground 2 inches, which let him, on my turn, reform and face a different direction with the Archmage, and have the Archmage be able to charge the Beast Lord, or the Wargore BSB on his turn. In the meantime, since I don't care very much, he doesn't know infantry, he doesn't have any white lines, he doesn't have any, dragon princes or anything over here, I just faced my primal herd just this way. And I just had them sitting there, so that if the shaman got charged by the prince, I could charge into them with the primal herd, and I would probably just win combat, and he would lose, and he'd run away. So these guys, they're facing this direction, giving their rear to all of his guys who probably aren't going to be able to charge me. But what he ended up doing was he ended up going into the Beast Lord again, and we ended up dueling to the death, where his prince had 1 wound left, and my Beast Lord died. And that was how the game pretty much ended. His Moondragon Archmage beat my Wargore, on the other hand, and totally just wiped him out. So he kind of stopped pulling his weight in this game. And this is the last picture here. So ended up being a nice, solid victory for him. I basically got almost no victory points, because all of his units that had been damaged, like the Reavers or some of the Silverhelms, they weren't under half, or they weren't under 25%. And even the damaged chariots, they just don't give up any points. I got 1 Vile Tide off on a Skycutter that did 3 wounds, but it had 1 left, so it gave up me no points. So other than wounding his prince, I got no victory points this game.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah.
Well done to Eric for playing that very, very well. Definitely, I think he learned some lessons from the first matchup, and you was able to utilize those in the second one. But that being said, you still had an exceptional run and came in third, which is very, very hard to do.
Yeah, definitely. And nerf dragons.
Or at least facing 2 of them is a challenge. All right, so we made it to the end. So there you go. So this is one of our first, again, not necessarily live battle reports, but Evan took enough images, which was great. They were able to walk you through his weekend adventure, or his battle throughout the ranks of his foes. Had some highs, had some lows, but ultimately, hopefully, had a really fun time. Evan, any last thoughts, sir?
I just think that I would have done better if I had stayed legendary. That's all.
All right, we'll see you all next time.